side of Jews, does that constitute bullying or harassment?
It is a context-dependent decision, Congresswoman.
I thought hate speech was violence, and isn't violence against the code of conduct? I can't believe people sitting in front of a bus didn't change the weather. The mob versus California, a little bit on the UNLV shooting, and absolutely zero on the debate last night that literally nobody watched. All that and more coming up on this episode of Daily Caller Live. Thanks so much for tuning in. My name is Jobob. Daily Caller Live starts right now.
2, 1.
Here we go!
Might be the only brown guy on earth named Jobob.
That is actually her name, Jobob.
Live from the dingy bunker that is completely and totally and utterly cut off from the outside world, except for you fine folks. My name is Jobob. This is Daily Caller Live. Thanks so much for tuning in on today. This Thursday, December 7th, year of 2023. So glad you could join us. A lot of stuff to catch you up on. Specifically and most notably, I think what happened in Congress 2 days ago. Didn't have it on yesterday because yesterday we were pre-recorded because I was flying around doing a bunch of stuff. And got to bring it to you today. Also, I did mean that at the very beginning. We will be talking zero about the Republican debate last night, mostly because I don't think anybody other than people that are hyper into this sort of thing are even aware that there was a Republican debate last night. I would guarantee you there is a sizable percentage of you that are watching this right now going, there was a Republican debate last night? Yes. I did not watch it. I specifically did not watch it because I don't think it matters, and I didn't want to subject myself to that kind of ear abuse from whatever was happening on the debate stage last night. But it took place in Alabama. Trump wasn't there, so it doesn't matter. On to something that does matter, and I think is so telling of not only the situation going on in some of the most elite universities in this country, but overall how the society that we live in has changed, but also how wrong and disingenuous the arguments being made prior to this were. What I mean by that is, do you remember when speech was violence? I put finger quotes around the wrong term. What I meant to do was speech was violence. That's better. Remember when speech was violence? Remember when accidentally misgendering someone could get you hauled in front of the DEI commission at one of your big universities? Remember if you question anything that is in line with the doctrine of the indoctrination on the college left, you were going to be strung up on a post and lambasted by the university? Remember how if you even merely suggest something that may align with stereotypes like, holy cow, Asians are good at math, that would be just the most racist thing that you could possibly do, just in your words and your words alone. Well, if you remember any of those, as I do, know that all of that was just made up lollygook. I don't even know what that word is. Okay. It's been a morning. That was just made up befuddle-be-boob. Nothing, just nothing. It was nothing. It was completely disingenuous at the time. And the reason that we know that now is because actual threats of violence, that's fine. As long as it is in line with the narrative that we want and the indoctrination that we're pushing, it's totally fine and we're willing to accept it, says the university presidents of some of the most elite universities in the country. The other day, they were in front of Congress for some reason, a bunch of them, Penn, Harvard, MIT, and Elise Stefanik of New York was specifically asking the question, hey, you guys have this code of conduct on your college campuses, and we, the conservative side of America, have seen that code of conduct be exercised in ways that we don't think is appropriate for college campuses to exercise the quote-unquote code of conduct. And now we see students marching in the streets, literally chanting for the genocide of an entire race and people and population. And the same universities that would have hauled you in front of the DEI commission for even suggesting, hey, I don't know, the Indian American students tend to be pretty good at medicines in the School of Medicine. Even just suggesting that would have you hauled in front of the DEI commission. But now that your students, the same students, by the way, are advocating for killing off an entire group of people, that's not in the code of conduct? How does that make sense? But I want you to play this because, again, you might not even believe that this is happening, but the video from that testimony in that committee hearing is astonishing. I want you to watch this and we will discuss on the other side. Check it out.
Ms. McGill, at Penn, does calling for the genocide of Jews violate Penn's rules or code of conduct? Yes or no?
If the speech turns into conduct, it can be harassment. Yes.
I am asking specifically calling for the genocide of Jews. Does that constitute bullying or harassment?
If it is directed and severe or pervasive, it is harassment.
So the answer is yes.
It is a context-dependent decision, Congresswoman.
It's a context-dependent decision. That's your testimony today. Calling for the genocide of Jews is depending upon the context. That is not bullying or harassment. This is the easiest question to answer yes, Ms. McGill. So is your testimony that you will not answer yes?
If it if the
yes
speech
or
becomes
no?
if the speech becomes conduct, it can be harassment. Yes.
Conduct meaning committing the act of genocide? The speech is not harassment? This is unacceptable, Ms. McGill. I'm going to give you one more opportunity for the world to see your answer. Does calling for the genocide of Jews violate Penn's code of conduct when it comes to bullying and harassment? Yes or no?
It can be harassment.
The answer is yes.
What I think is most notable here, if you're watching this, if you're just listening to the podcast section, you probably, well, you obviously don't see this because you're just listening, but is the smirk on this lady's face. I don't know McGill from University of the Pennsylvania, UPenn, I think. But he asked the question, hey, if, at least if I'm a congresswoman, New York, saying, if somebody's calling for genocide, that's not against your code of conduct? Now, the code of conduct in all of these schools that they asked, I think MIT, Penn, and Harvard kind of all have the similar type thing. If somebody feels bullied, harassed by repeated language or whatever, then that would constitute a violation of the student code of conduct. Now, clearly, it should go without saying, chanting repeatedly, hey, we would like to kill this group of people, and considering that there are that group of people on that campus who are students there, people on campus, including students, saying repeatedly, we'd like to kill this group of students, that, yeah, it depends on the context, says the president of UPenn. And then it says, well, if it escalates to conduct, what is it, conduct? No, what did she say? What was the term? Basically, she said, if you actually do it, yeah, that would be, so if you actually start the genocide of Jews, that would be, again, that's good. Good, you know what? At least that's good. If at Penn you start actively genociding Jews, that, according to the university president, would be a problem. I guess what I don't understand, okay, shoe on the other foot, just hypothetically, I would never, this is strictly an example, obviously. It's crazy that I have to say that it's an example, but as an example, if anyone of any race, but obviously specifically, if a white person went onto a university campus and started chanting, calling for the genocide of all Latinos or all black people or any other group, yeah, I would imagine the university would step in at some point and say, hey, that's really against our code of conduct. Because remember, other things that are against the code of conduct are misgendering someone or pointing out variables that exist in different groups of people that allow them to succeed. It's in the way you were raised or your family home structure. But apparently, the crazy wing of their aisle, on their side of the aisle, is so prominent in their universities that the university professors are scared to even say something about it. And by the way, had these professors, these presidents, just plainly stated, yes, none of this would have made any news. I guarantee you nobody would have heard of it. Like Congresswoman Stefanik, and I don't want to belittle her line of questioning, I guess, but if all of them had just said, yes, calling for killing this group of students is against our code of conduct, none of that would have landed. Her line of questioning wouldn't have made the news. We wouldn't be talking about it here today. I guarantee you, nobody at the university would have even seen it. Maybe some of the deans that were just kind of watching out of curiosity. Hey, one of my coworkers is testifying in front of Congress. But it wouldn't have been a thing. But even then, there is so much pressure, or they are at least scared so much of their crazy side that they're not willing to say yes. Calling for the murder of a bunch of our students it depends if that's okay or not. There's more. This is the president of Harvard answering the same or similar question. Check this out.
And Dr. Gay, at Harvard, does calling for the genocide of Jews violate Harvard's rules of bullying and harassment, yes or no?
It can be, depending on the context.
What's the context?
Targeted as an individual, at an individual.
It's targeted at Jewish students, Jewish individuals. Do you understand your testimony is dehumanizing them? Do you understand that dehumanization is part of anti-Semitism? I will ask you one more time. Does calling for the genocide of Jews violate Harvard's rules of bullying and harassment, yes or no?
Anti-Semitic rhetoric.
And is it anti-Semitic rhetoric?
Anti-Semitic rhetoric, when it crosses into conduct that amounts to bullying, harassment, intimidation, that is actionable conduct, and we do take action.
So the answer is yes, that calling for the genocide of Jews violates Harvard Code of Conduct, correct?
Again, it depends on the context.
It does not depend on the context. The answer is yes, and this is why you should resign. These are unacceptable answers across the board.
Yeah, it depends. Just hear me out on this one. Now that we know that there's such a wide open, and by the way, I think it should be said that, of course, I think those ideas are abhorrent, but generally speaking, I lean more on the side of let crazy people say crazy things so that normal people can look at them and go, wow, that's crazy. Now, what I'm saying is I'm not at all condoning that type of speech, but put in the context of all of the other things that do, quote unquote, go against the code of conduct for students at these particular universities, then this is ridiculous. This is insane. In other words, I can be convinced of a situation where all of it's fine, where misgendering somebody or speaking as a conservative speaker on these campuses, that's totally fine. Then you can have more of an argument, at the very least, of saying, look, it depends on the context. Obviously, you know our reputation as this prestigious university is we let everybody say everything, and we have a very, very wide lane of what's acceptable from a free speech standpoint, not necessarily from a what we agree with standpoint. But the problem is, it's a very, very, very narrow lane if you happen to have a particular worldview. But if you don't have the conservative worldview and you're progressive from the left, then all of a sudden it's anything. It depends on the context. If it mobilizes into conduct, if some of our students actually start the genocide of Jews, that would actually, that would be against our code of conduct. Good. Glad we got there. But I think the last thing I want to say is I would be so curious to see what would happen if a large contingency of the student population on any of these campuses who the presidents can't quite seem to figure out what is against the school code of conduct and what isn't, considering that, well, they're not targeting specific individuals, it's just kind of a big thing, because that's what they're saying. Well, it depends on the context. Once it starts targeting a specific individual, then we have an issue. I would be curious to see what would happen if a large contingency of those students on that campus started rallying, protesting, and chanting for the removal of all university heads. Not specific to Miss McGill at Penn or Miss Gay at Harvard, not specific to them, but just in general, a broader sense of chanting, I don't know, the presidents of universities have, I don't know, I got to work on the chant. But basically, get out there chanting. We need the removal. We need to rid ourselves of the presidents of the universities of the United States of America. And notice I didn't even go as far as to say to kill them, because I can't even get myself to use that as an example. But just remove them altogether. I would guarantee you these presidents, in the threat of their possible removal from their cush job at their Ivy League school, would say, whoa, this is a targeted attack against me. This is against our school code of conduct. It cannot be allowed. Wait, but you said context matters. And nobody mentioned you specifically. They just said all presidents. So in what way does this violate the school code of conduct, according to you testifying in front of Congress? Remember when hate speech was violence? What the heck even is hate speech? Dear presidents of universities who are this dunderheaded, I hate you. That is hate speech. Take it to the bank. What a crazy time. You know what's even, not to segue that tough and hard into this, but I thought this was fascinating. We won't spend a ton of time on this because I think, speaking of the mob and speaking of the university presidents being scared of the mob on university campuses, check this out. So California, Sacramento, the capital of California, every year has a Christmas tree lighting ceremony that they do on the Capitol. It's a big fun thing. You get all the kids from the community to come out, and parents have something to do, and it's a fun thing to do in California. And again, we won't spend a ton of time on this, but I think it's fascinating that the mob apparently won in the state of California, and the governor, Gavin Newsom, canceled the Christmas tree lighting ceremony, not because of anything other than, it's going to be done virtually now, so great, but the threat of protests was enough reason to cancel the Christmas tree parade. We all saw the Christmas tree lighting in New York City where cops were, fighting the quote-unquote peaceful protesters protesting for the genocide of Jews, again. But that same fear of protests caused the governor to go, no, we're not going to do this anymore because of the threat of protests. What a weird message to send. Okay, all right, you win, you guys win. It's okay now. Your point, the heckler's veto has worked, and apparently it will work going forward. Signed, Gavin Newsom, California. Speaking of Gavin Newsom in California, and I got to rush through this because I've got, believe it or not, I started late because I always start late because I'm bad at being on time. But I got a TV hit that I got to do, so I got to speed through this. But anyways, California, if you didn't know this already, this is it. Maybe we'll talk more about this. Maybe we'll do like an auxiliary show later on today because there's too much to get to. The people in front of the bus, the UNLV thing. But we'll just get to this really quick. California is now mandating that retailers have LGBTQ plus 2IA, two-spirit, whatever, toys in their aisles. Which from a moral standpoint, like, all right, that's ridiculous. And also, it's California trying to show off how progressive it is to the rest of the country. But retailers in California face up to a $500 fine per day for not having the appropriate, satisfactory level of LGBTQ gender-neutral toys in their toy aisles. Now, the obvious problem with all of this is what constitutes as a gender-neutral toy. I would imagine that this, I think, officially became law. I think, or at least is going to at the first of the year, or has today or yesterday. Regardless, whenever it goes into effect, I would imagine it's going to be shot down in the courts probably relatively easy. I don't think the state can mandate what stores carry in their toy department. But nevertheless, California trying to flex its dictatorial, tyrannical muscles upon the patrons of stores in California. And I don't know. Just a what a ridiculous thing to think that you could try in the biggest state in the union, population-wise. Let's see. As promised, we didn't talk anything about the debate. But I got to jump off here because I don't want to complain about work, but this is probably a good time to complain about work. I think what is now. It doesn't matter. I got to hop off, but if you haven't already, give me a follow on any of your social media accounts. Just type in JOBOB. It remains to be seen whether or not we'll be here tomorrow. I will be in the air tomorrow during the show time, but if I can get to it today, we'll try and record an episode for that'll air tomorrow, where we talk about all the things that we were going to talk about, but ran out of time to talk about because I rambled on, as I always do, on the Ivy League schools and the lack of against their student conduct earlier. But if you haven't already, give me a follow on any of your social media accounts. Just type in JOBOB. You'll find me pretty much anywhere. We will see you maybe tomorrow. If not, have a great weekend. We will see you Monday. God bless America.